Hello, my loves. Woo! It's a lot right now. I feel like I need to pause in some ways and just acknowledge that we're all going through a lot. So this is your July soul message, and it's called the Great Release. So last month for June, we had the Great Purge. And I don't know about you, but it was very serious for me. I took it very, very seriously. And so I spent a good portion of time clearing stuff out of my house. And I mean all the way down to the bones, like what does not belong here, especially things that are heavy, that hold old energy that I don't want in my life. So I'll start with this story up front. One of those items for me personally was my first wedding dress. And I had thought that I was going to keep it for my daughter. And both of us realized that neither of us wanted that. And so I decided to get rid of it. I tried to resell it. They didn't want it. And so what was interesting is I was charged with this call to have to get rid of it anyway, even if I wasn't going to make money for it, and it was expensive and all of that stuff. And so I immediately put it in the car and took it to Goodwill and dropped it off. And it was just the most bizarre thing to watch this man come out and take it. And he said, "Oh, is it just a box?" And I said, "No, there's a wedding dress inside." And so he took it and he turned around and walked back in, and it was like he was taking my old life or something away from me. And, it was just the most bizarre thing, because it was like he was just, tossing something in a bin, like it was nothing. And I thought that I was fine. And I was like, okay, wow, that was intense. And then I left. And later that evening, I started to get a rash under my arms. And then it spread all over my arms, all over my legs, all over my face, full body hives. Like it even makes me itchy to think about it right now. Ugh, my eyes were nearly swollen shut for a couple days. And it was so bad. I was like, what is going on? And what I realized is, there's this thought, and I'm sorry, this message is going to be long. I know in our ADD world, we can only stand 20 minutes, but hang with me here. So in homeopathy, they teach that, I learned this from a naturopath. They teach that when your body is trying to express something, it's trying to express illness or something, an allergy, whatever it is, it goes into a larger expression of the thing that it's trying to kick off before it leaves. And so, in Western medicine, we're kind of ignorant when we throw, aspirin on a fever, or when we, try to use medicine or drugs to reduce the symptoms of something, because the symptoms are actually your body trying to do its job. And so when I remembered that, I was kind of freaking out initially. And then when I remembered that, I was like, oh yeah, right. My body's doing what it needs to do. What is this about? And I realized, wow, it's like my body is expressing all of this old heat, anger, rage, fear, disappointment, all the things, right, that were attached to that, not the wedding dress, but like that were attached to the symbol of my old life. And when I realized that, it started to calm down, and I was like, oh, okay. I did a bunch of other things, and Kundalini yoga and a bunch of things that help move the energy and the heat out. But it was really scary, but also really important. And especially because of what I'm going to talk about today, the Great Release. So as I've been doing not just these messages for 4 years, but also just doing intuitive work, what I have seen is that I often have to experience the thing that I'm going to talk about. Like I have to experience the month's energy or whatever, acutely before I'm going to talk about it. And so I feel like that was kind of what happened. I got front loaded with it like a week before the end of the month to move into January, to move in. What month is it? What year is it even? Really, seriously. July, to move into July. And so it's interesting. I think we're going to have a trio here. We have the Great Purge and then the Great Release. And I think August is going to be the Great Surrender, but I will hold off on committing to that until we see what the guides have for us when the time comes. But it's very indicative of where we are. And even here in Portland, we had a massive heat wave the last couple days. I'm talking 115 degree heat. I am 47 years old and I was born and raised here, and I have never seen it this hot. Maybe 103 in August, but not in June, and not this hot. It feels like Mother Earth is showing us this same expression of heat. Like we have to kick off all of this, the old wounds. And what's important about the homeopathy example that I was talking about is when we take drugs to suppress the expression of the symptoms, what I learned is that it tells your body like the symptom or the illness has to bury further deeper into your bones. And so I just thought that was interesting because I let go of the wedding dress. And this was another piece of something that I'm going to talk about, and then I'll get into the July energy. I let go of the wedding dress. And so what we're moving into is this congruence of inside outside. When we let go of something in the physical, it also has to be let go of in the energetic. If we let go of something in the outside world, it has to be let go of in the inside world. So here I'm letting go of this external physical wedding dress, but then all of the feelings and the emotions and the attachments and everything that were connected to that in my body had to go also. And that's really where we're moving, is into this congruence of inside, outside, left brain, right brain, left, like the polarized. I think it's interesting, right as I was getting ready to sit down for this, I thought, isn't it interesting that even our political parties are called the left and the right? And it's because we're totally polarized and our bodies are not crisscrossing down the center line, the energy that is supposed to be moving. And it makes us, I'm losing the word, but we become homeostasis on one or the other side. No, that's not the right word. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. We get stuck on one side or the other, and we're not crisscrossing. So here's what's happening. So the Great Release. And this is how it pairs with the Great Purge. So we have the Great Purge, which is the physical, all the physical stuff moving, like the wedding dress, right? Like the stuff in your basement, whatever. I'd be very interested to hear if people are feeling called to what was your journey for the Great Purge? And did you take that really seriously and actively participate in it and move stuff physically out of your life? And then the Great Release, what that's about is the image that I was getting is it's kind of like when you have surgery. And after you have surgery, the furniture inside of your body has all been moved around. And so it has to recalibrate. It's soft, it's swollen, it's gentle, it's tender. It's like, a child that has to be nursed back to health, right? And that's kind of what's happened for us, physically or energetically, however it showed up for you, that the furniture has been moved around. And so we're a little bit like babies learning to walk again, because we have to figure out how to do this thing now that everything has been shifted and changed. And, even in the outside world, it's like we've been doing the social distancing thing and the masking thing, and a lot of the world is starting to open up here again. And so it's like, okay, well, we've gone through this kind of collective trauma / recalibration, a complete inner shift. It called a lot of us to get really clear on what we care about, how we want our life to look and be, and are we in congruence with that? Does the outside of our world, parallel or congruent with the inside? And so now that all of that has happened, we are in this space of softness and tenderness and release. And it can be really scary and it can be really tender, because it's kind of a place of not knowing. When you're sick and you're trying to come back to health, it can be really scary, because the foundation, the things that you were standing on, the automatic nervous system, it's like, the stuff that's held in your body that you just know how to do without thinking about it, all of that gets altered. And so you have to start thinking differently and thinking about the placement of your feet and all of that stuff. And so it's just a very tender time. So I just invite everyone to be gentle with yourself. And so then, to go back to this outside-inside congruency, it's also about the masculine feminine and how that shows up in the world. So we have been geared and trained and, taught that everything that is masculine, that is the physical, the built world, the external, has value. And all of the feminine things, the darkness, the mystery, the unknown, magic, all of that has been, demonized even and put down. So we are learning now, as we are starting to recalibrate, that, oh wow, like the feminine, the dark, the unseen, the energetic world is not only there, but it is the fabric that sits underneath. There's an energetic kind of floor that sits underneath everything that we do. And so that wisdom is starting to come up from the earth. I've been talking about that for months now. And it's like we're starting to see that the energy, the space between things, the space underneath things, the energy that is present but maybe not spoken, is not only there, but it is vital and valuable to pay attention to and to notice. And that is a complete reclamation of the feminine, but just also a bringing back together of both parts of yourself. So, there's this kind of tenderness of like all the new stuff that's here, and like, can I rely on it or not? And just learning to trust that inner knowing. A teacher of mine years ago, Robert Ohado, he had this saying that energy doesn't lie. People lie, but energy doesn't lie. And what we're starting to learn is that lesson. That is the feminine, the energy, the unseen is the feminine. And so it holds so much wisdom and so much frequency and creativity and all of that what I feel personally is that I'm starting to notice that I have to pay attention to the energy more than the physical thing. So if a person is showing up this way, or a situation or whatever, it's like, okay, don't pay attention to what's being said or done. Pay attention to the energy that lies underneath it, because that's going to have more information. And it's also not about what other people are doing. It's about the energy of yourself. It's about your own energy. Okay, well, maybe I'm saying or doing this, but what is my energy? How do I actually feel? So all of that is really important. And then astrologically, I feel like this entire message is going in a backwards fashion, because I was going to talk about this first. But the energy that we had in June was 3 major astrological things. One, we had solstice, which I've just learned that solstice we have it twice a year in both places of the year, is this energy of the end of the road and then the beginning of the next one. So we're kind of in this place of like the dirt path between, I talked about this in the full moon ceremony, where we're at the end of a paved road and then we're on a little bit of a dirt road before we get to the next one. So we're a little bit in that unknown anyways before we walk into the next path. Then we have Mercury retrograde, was for the majority of June. It's over now. It's officially gone back direct, but there's an integration phase for 2 weeks. So we're still in it until July 7th. And that energy is all about disorganization to reorganization. We have 3 Mercury retrogrades a year, and those are times for us to kind of dive in and go, okay, is my life going the way that I want it to? It's a whole review period, right? So that you have a chance to recalibrate and figure it out. And then we also had eclipse season, which is like, the light's completely off and then the light's completely on. So it's like we're in the dark and then the flashlight goes on and we can see all the rats in the corner and everything that we weren't paying attention to. So that is a lot to not only contend with, but then to integrate. So it feels like July is like this release energy, this integration phase, and kind of the healing of the physical body based on whatever we let go of. And let's see, was there anything else? So I guess I'll go into, well, let me pull a card first and then I'll go into the 3 suggested items and the oil of the month. Okay, so let's see what we have. And I'm feeling like it's this guy right here. Oh, for God's sake, you can't make this shit up. The underworld, baby. The underworld. Oh, dear God. It's like, haven't we had enough? But the underworld can be very tender, beautiful place because there's also so much information. There's so much that gets unearthed when we're down there. Okay, the underworld. The nightmare, the ordeal, the bottom. This is no time to mince words. The archetypal territory of the underworld is fraught with nightmares, suffering, and pain. It is the darkest shadow realm, which we try vigilantly to avoid or deny at any cost. Try as we might, the darkness pulls us into its depths through disturbing dream images, unexpected accidents, illness, war, conflict, and ultimately death. Not visiting the underworld or denying its existence altogether is what gives it dangerous power, right? So what I'm immediately drawn to is my hives and wanting to deny their expression. I actually went to Zoom care, which is like a doctor's on duty kind of urgent care, when that was happening, and their only offer or suggestion for me was prednisone, and I've taken it one time and it is absolutely satanic. I will never take it again. It was horrible, and one of the side effects even is swelling, and I'm like, what am I going to take that for when I'm already swollen? That's ridiculous. But so I had to just let it express fully in its own right. Traversing it forces us to bow humbly to the greater forces that be. Just like my body knows what it's doing. My body knows more than I do. It's in charge. Just let it do what it needs to do. While summoning the inner strength we previously underestimated. So let me say that again. Traversing it forces us to bow humbly to the greater forces that be while summoning the inner strength we previously underestimated, right? So we're pulled into that inner strength when we go to the underworld. We have to, we get to see the strength that we already had, that already resides within us. Take solace that the underworld subsumes everyone from time to time, making us deeper friends, more intimate partners, soldiers of light amid our shadowy times. Facing darkness and choosing light is the most profound calling of all. I mean, that could not be more appropriate for us right now. Facing darkness and choosing light is the most profound calling of all. Okay, so I didn't think I was going to talk about this piece, but I am. We are in this incredibly polarized time, as we all know. Politically, it was very charged before, any of this coronavirus came along. But now it's even more charged because, especially as we start to come out of quarantine, because there's this really charged vaccinated, not vaccinated, thing going on. And, we're all afraid. We're all scared. We all don't know what's going on. And each of us individually have to decide what is right and best and true for us. And we have to do that. I think it's a really powerful tool of this time, is that we can't rely upon what the outside world is telling us. We all have to arc from what feels right on the inside. And so I love that facing darkness and choosing light is the most profound calling of all. The underworld subsumes everyone from time to time, which is what we've all gone through collectively, making us deeper friends, more intimate partners, soldiers of light amid our shadowy times. Because we have to realize that we are all friends here. We are all unified in this experience of being human. And so when we hang in right, wrong, good, bad, we're perpetuating the polarization and, creating divide instead of creating unity and trying to understand one another. So win light, bravery, depth, facing of deepest fears. Win dark, denial, suppression, evil, unconscious. To go deeper, read Meeting the Shadow, edited by Connie Zweig and Jeremiah Abrams. Search for images of a map of Dante's Inferno. What does the story of epic descent stir in you? One of the earliest stories on record is that of the goddess Inanna's descent. Turns out descending into the underworld is as old as time itself. So I'll show you the card again. What was I going to say there? I just lost it. Anyway. Okay. So the 3 suggestions that I have for this month. One that came up for me that I am going to start practicing. I haven't even tried it yet. It's called the Abhaya Mudra, otherwise known as the Fearless Mudra. And so when you're sitting in meditation, it's left hand down in release, right hand up it's almost like a boundary, like I'm releasing and I'm letting go, and this is my space and this is what I'm doing for me, right? What's interesting about this is the left side of the body is feminine, right side is masculine. So left side as the feminine is typically the side of receiving. And the right side, the masculine, is typically the energy of giving. And this mudra is opposite that. It's like the feminine is releasing, is giving and letting go. And the right side is, holding a boundary and saying no and not giving. So I find that really interesting. So, check that out and see how that lands for you. I'd love to hear how your practice goes with that. The second one is Loving What Is, and Byron Katie has a book with this title. It is absolutely amazing if you haven't read it. But it's really about, being with what is and not judging it, not, trying to be right, not trying to have an answer. But it's about being with what is, and it's about letting people be who they are and letting that tell you the story, rather than trying to manipulate people to be who you want them to be, or situations or, places, whatever it is. And then the third thing is space. And it's just that simple. Giving yourself space around everything, whether that be physically clearing your home and allowing space, whether that being allowing space in your body, maybe even in your diet with fasting, maybe just kind of letting there be more space than there usually is, which is interesting because here we are kind of coming out of quarantine and we've had so much physical space, but I'm talking about space for yourself. I'm talking about space for there to just be the unknown, just to be in not knowing, and, letting yourself have that. Because when we rush and we try to fill the space so much, we aren't being with what is, and then we don't allow life and the mystery, the darkness, the feminine, the unknown to fill in the blanks for us. We are always co-creating, but it makes it really hard to co-create if you're just going, and not doing the receiving. It's like the yin yang has to move. It has to move together. They're co-creating. The masculine has the dot, and the dot is the feminine that's moving the wheel forward. It's the guiding force. And the feminine has the masculine dot, and that's the masculine is the guiding force of the feminine. And if the two are not working in tandem, then you have imbalance and suffering and illness and all of it. Even I've seen in relationships, we each have our own inner yin yang, but in relationships, a third yin yang gets created. And if one person in the relationship is hogging all the yang, then the other person has to live in yin because there's nowhere else for them to go. And ideally, we are fluidly, we are moving that energy in a figure 8 back and forth, and giving and receiving, sharing and offering in that way. So the oil for the month is release. So I've just moved as of June 1 from doTERRA over to Young Living, and I cannot be more excited about it. I literally love this company. I don't even understand. I never thought that I would be like a company person and, into all of that. But, and I just got into it to support my clients to have access to oils. I had no intention of like running it as a business or doing any of that. I've got my clients, I've got my other business, but it's fast becoming something that I'm really interested in because the integrity of the company is absolutely exquisite. And so I don't even have this oil yet. I was guided to 3 oils, and much like picking an oracle card, I just went with the one that felt like it was right for now. So release is the oil, but I also want to suggest inner child, because that energy is coming up too, and we had Ylang Ylang last month, which is kind of the energetic energy of the inner child, but Young Living has so many more blends than doTERRA did that I'm just kind of diving into them myself and finding those. So I don't even have release yet. I'm going to be ordering it for July because of how this came up. But there is also an inner child oil, and I think if you have that, or if you're interested in diving in and working with that a little bit more, I think it would be really nice to combine it with release in the diffuser or whatever. So that's it. I love you all. I hope you're doing well, and just be gentle with yourself. It's a very tender time as we're all like figuring out again, like what is the world? What is our footing underneath us? How does this work? How does this not work? It's a confusing time. In Portland, we live really close to Vancouver, Washington, just on the other side of the river. And my daughter and I went there, and we went to Target, and we were like, okay, what's going on? There's no mask signs, and no one's wearing masks in here, but in Portland there are. So there's this confusing time of like, where do we land? Where are we collectively, right? Like, is it safe yet? What's going on? So there's a lot of anxiety up with that too. So be gentle with yourself. It's a core time for all of us. It's like the whole of humanity is just shifting and recalibrating and moving into this new space. So anyway, I love you, and be well. Have a wonderful month. Namaste.